introduce you, I'm gonna say, this is a friend of mine. That means you're connected, gang. Now, if I said that this is a friend of ours, that would mean you were made, gang. Capiche?
That is a clip from Donnie Brasco, based on the true story of an FBI agent who goes undercover into the New York mob. The agent's real-life experience and that of several other covert operatives are detailed in the new book, Undercover, by Stephen Metelsky. And Stephen joins us this morning. Good morning, Stephen.
Hi, Annette. Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on.
This is a fascinating book. I want to give a little bit about your background. You're retired from Halton Regional Police and the RCMP, and you were involved in a lot of covert operations, training and organizing. You're now a professor of criminology at Mohawk College, so you've done your homework. You know what you're talking about, and you interviewed a number of covert ops.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it was firsthand interviews with some amazing men and women on both sides of the border in Canada and the United States. And I wrote this book to take readers into the front seat of a vehicle that's just driving, you know, at a high rate of speed, because that's what undercover work is. And I wanted to vicariously have people who read the book experience what these men and women experience while working deep undercover and infiltrating these criminal organized groups.
Right, and this is a job that you just don't, you know, put your briefcase down or your gun down, right, and then walk away. You are on this constantly, because after the covert, or, you know, during a covert operation, maybe you know, there's a really high energy event that happens. After all that, you have to go back to your safe place and detail all the notes.
Yeah, absolutely, Annette. And the thing is, a lot of these operatives, there's no clock on Friday at 5 o'clock to punch. And, you know, the operative turns around and says, okay, I'll see you at Monday. You know, when you become so deeply immersed into these criminal groups, the longer and longer a UC stays undercover in these groups, the less likely they are able to go back to their real life, because it's just actually too dangerous to go back. And once they become in that role, it's, you know, they live at 365, 24/7. And everything they see, everything they hear, they do have to detail all that in notes, because at the end of an investigation, they will have to, under their real identity, testify about what they saw during that investigation.
Right. I was interested, too, in the protections that they don't live at home, because there's always the risk that somebody could find out where they really lived. And it's like, hey, that doesn't match your story, your undercover story.
Yeah, absolutely. The long-term investigations, especially, they will have an undercover safe house. And the other thing, too, that the ones that are even more covert are actually the undercover handlers. Their sole responsibility is the safety of that undercover operative. And I liken it to the analogy of a movie set. The undercover operator is not only looking after the safety of the UC, but they are scripting every play, almost like a movie script. But the difference is in that, you know, this isn't Hollywood. In Hollywood, they have the luxury of saying, okay, cut, let's do this again. In undercover work, you have one shot to get it right. And then you have all these other stressors and cover stories that you have to remember all at the same time.
Right. I found it very interesting that you always use your first name, so that if somebody, you know, in a bar or something talks to you, you're not like, hey, why didn't you respond to that? Well, that wasn't my name, kind of thing. But yeah, that was, I mean, it's such a simple thing.
It really is a simple thing. And that was one of the huge common themes. And when I did undercover work, you do keep your same first name. And the one thing that's really extremely important, not only with your name, but is your backstory, your cover story. You know, the fictitious ID and the credit cards to match are just the tip of the iceberg. You have to have a very scripted backstop cover story, because these criminal organized groups, their background checks and that are more stringent and detailed than what you would see with a legitimate government agency.
Right.
So
Stephen,
if you were
I have to cut you off here, but we're going to get the link up on our website, chch.com, where people can find your fascinating book. Great job on this one. We have just reached the tip of the iceberg on this.